It's 5 in the morning and it's still dark out. You've got a brisket on, the fire's finally settled, and you drop 2 chunks of hickory onto the coals, because that is what the bag said it was. 20 minutes later, the smoke out of that stack is wrong. Maybe it's thick and white when it should be thin and almost blue. Maybe it smells sharp, like a burn pile instead of a kitchen. Maybe it's fine all morning, and then 8 hours later, the bark tastes like an ashtray, and you cannot tell anybody why. And you stand there in the cold and decide the problem is you. It isn't you. You cooked it right, and you bought the one product in that entire store that nobody is required to describe honestly, because there is no rule that says they have to. And here's the good news. Before you go looking for somebody to be angry at, fixing this costs you 1 phone call and 1 Saturday morning. Not one thing on the list is sold in that aisle. My name is Matt Garrison. I run Grill Verdict, and I'm not a chef and I'm not a pitmaster. I'm a guy who's burned through 7 grills in 8 years, watched a couple of them rust out in 2 seasons, and got tired of standing in that aisle with 30 boxes in front of me and no idea which one was lying to me. Nobody sponsors this channel. There are no affiliate links. Nobody pays me to point at a brand. Now, I want to be straight with you before we start. I went into this wanting to prove the chunks in those bags are chopped up shipping pallets. That's the version everybody repeats. I could not prove it. No recall, no lawsuit, no lab report, no producer admitting it, and I'm not going to tell you something I can't back up. What I found instead is quieter, and it's worse. At the end of this, I'm going to show you the one time scientists put barbecue fuel under a microscope and counted what was inside the bag. Every single bag was wrong. And I'll show you a federal case where a company wrote a check over what wood was really in the package. All right, let's get into it. The first thing that bag is doing is giving you a flavor instead of a tree. Pick one up, turn it over. On the front you get one word, and the word is hickory, or mesquite, or apple, or post oak. That word feels like an ingredient. It is not an ingredient. It's a flavor category, doing the same job the word berry does on a box of cereal. Here's what the label is supposed to be able to tell you, and what it almost never does. A tree has a species and a place it grew. White oak out of Missouri and post oak out of Central Texas are not interchangeable, and neither of them is the same as some mixed hardwood that came off a mill floor in a state nobody wrote down. Second, the wood has a moisture content, and that number changes how it burns. Third, and this is the one that really matters, there is a difference between a log somebody split and the offcuts left when a mill trims boards to length. I pulled the panels on the big national brands. The Weber hickory chunks in every big box store in the country give you the word hickory and nothing else. No species, no state, no moisture figure, nothing about where in the supply chain it came from. What it does carry, in California anyway, is a Proposition 65 notice about wood dust, which the state lists as a cancer risk. That's not a scandal, those warnings are on a lot of things. But sit with the shape of it. There's a legally required warning about the dust, and no requirement at all to name the tree the dust came off of. Western Premium does better than most, and I'll give them that. They name post oak, they say it's cut and kiln-dried and heat-treated to keep out pests and mold. Their marketing talks about consistent moisture content. Go find the actual percentage on the bag. It isn't there. Consistent is a word. It is not a number. Cowboy will actually give you a figure, and credit to them for it. But you have to go to their frequently asked questions page to find it. They say all their products are heat-treated, meaning artificially dried down to an average of 18 to 22%. That's a real checkable number. And it's on a website, not on the bag in your hand. So here's your diagnostic tell, and you can run it in the store today. Flip the bag over and look for 3 things: the tree and where it grew, a moisture number, and a sentence telling you whether this is split log or mill leftovers. All 3 on a mass market bag is rare. On most, you get 1 word and a picture of a fire. Real quick before we go on. If you're trying to work out which brands are straight with you and which are counting on you not checking, that's why I put together the Grill Buyer's Black Book. The brand report card rates every major brand and who owns who. No sponsors, no affiliate links, links in the description, or scan the code on screen. If you want it, it's there. All right, back to it. The second thing that bag is doing is selling you the words kiln-dried, and those words do not mean what you think they mean. Kiln-dried sounds like a process with a standard behind it, like somebody in a lab coat signed off. Here's the problem. The National Firewood Outreach Program that exists specifically to stop people moving infested wood across state lines will tell you flat out that kiln-dried is a term without a firm definition and with no legal standing. Kilns run at all kinds of temperatures for all kinds of durations. Two bags can both say kiln-dried and have been through completely different processes. There is a regulated term, and it isn't that one. The federal agriculture people certify wood as heat-treated, and that has a real specification behind it, generally an hour at 140 degrees, aimed at killing insects like the emerald ash borer so the wood can legally leave a quarantine zone. That certification exists to protect trees. It was never designed to tell you how your brisket will taste. And now here's the part I did not expect, and this is the one I want you to really hear, because it's the opposite of what the bag is training you to believe. Drier is not automatically better. You've been taught dry wood is good wood, and for a campfire that's true. For smoke, there's a window. Most people who cook on wood for a living land between 15 and 25% moisture, and plenty tighten that to 15 to 22. Under that window, wood doesn't smolder, it flames. It burns hot and fast and gives you thin, weak smoke and not much of the flavor you paid for. Which means the phrase on the front of that bag, the phrase you're reading as a mark of quality, can describe wood that's been dried past the point where it does the job. So why do it? Because a plastic bag sitting on a warm shelf for 11 months is a mold factory. The wood hard is a shelf life decision. It's a logistics decision. It solves the retailer's problem, which is spoilage, and it charges you a premium for solving it. I'll tell you where I sat on this for a long time. For about 3 years, I bought the small bags off the end cap, the ones with the good photography, because grabbing one felt like the move a guy who knew what he was doing would make. I never once turned one over. I was buying a picture of a fire and a font. So the corrected rule is this. Kiln-dried on a bag is not a quality claim, it's a storage claim. If you're going to pay extra for a word, make it a word attached to a number. The third thing, and this is the one underneath the other two, nobody is checking. Not in the way you assume somebody is. I want to show you this by comparison, because the comparison is what makes it land. Walk 15 feet down the same aisle to the wood pellets. Pellets have a real standards program run by the Pellet Fuels Institute. It grades fuel on ash, on fines, on moisture, on chlorides, and on inorganic material, meaning dirt and rock and anything that isn't wood. Producers in that program submit product to third-party audits by an independent accredited lab, and testing happens monthly. Premium grade has to come in under 1% ash. There's a quality mark that goes on the bag. Now walk 15 feet back to the chunks. There is no equivalent. No ash spec. No foreign material spec. No moisture spec. No third-party audit. No monthly testing. Nothing, and I went looking for the agency in charge, because surely somebody is. The environmental people regulate burning treated wood. The weights and measures people care whether the bag weighs what it says. The agriculture people care about bugs crossing state lines. Every one of them is watching one narrow slice of the edge of this. Not one is opening bags and checking what species is inside. So what happens when somebody finally opens the bags? We know. Because in 2025 researchers published exactly that in the Forest Products Journal. The team came out of Mississippi State University working with a wood anatomist from the Federal Forest Products Laboratory. They bought one bag each of 15 major American brands and identified more than 18,000 fragments under a microscope. Now I have to be honest about the limit of this, because I said I would. They tested lump charcoal, not raw chunks. This is not a study of the bag of hickory in your garage, but it's the only time anybody has put barbecue fuel under magnification and checked the label against the contents. All 15 bags showed substantial inconsistencies with what the packaging said. Not most of them. All of them. They found one bag labeled as one ingredient, oak hardwood, that contained no oak whatsoever. It was a mix of at least 6 tropical woods. In 2 out of 5 bags claiming the charcoal came from the United States, 15% or more of the material was tropical species that don't grow here. Across the set, they identified 45 different genera across 29 plant families. Every bag had bark in it. 6 of the 15 had rocks in them, and 7 of the 15 weighed less than the package said. That is what happens when somebody finally opens the bags in a category where nobody was watching. And chunks sit in exactly the same blind spot. Now the pattern here is worth pointing out, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Go back through those three things. The bag doesn't name the tree, the processing word has no definition behind it, nobody audits the contents, every one of those is a gap, and every gap points the same direction. Each one gives whoever fills that bag more room, not less. A vague label is not laziness. It's inventory flexibility. It means the wood in the bag in March and the wood in the bag in September do not have to be the same wood, and nobody has to tell you, and nothing on the package will ever contradict them. That's not sloppy packaging. That is the packaging working exactly the way it was designed to work. So what do you actually do about it? This is the part the store cannot help you with, and it costs almost nothing. Buy a pin-type moisture meter. It's the cheapest real instrument you'll ever own for this, roughly what you already spend on 2 of those little bags. Split a chunk, press the pins into the fresh face, and read it. You're looking for 15 to 25%. Under about 12 and you have wood that's going to flame instead of smolder. That is the whole test. The pros measure. The civilians guess. Second test, and it's free. Look at the faces of the chunk. A split log has irregular faces, a riven look where the wood tore along the grain, and usually bark on one edge. Milled lumber has flat parallel faces, uniform thickness. Sometimes saw marks in perfect regular lines. If you find nail holes, staple holes, glue lines, paint, or any finish, that piece never came off a tree somebody split. It came off something that was built. Third, and this is worth knowing even though I couldn't tie it to any bag on a shelf. Shipping packaging wood carries a stamp burned into the surface, not a sticker. A little wheat sheaf logo with a country code and a treatment code. The letters HT mean heat treatment. The letters MB mean it was fumigated with methyl bromide. If somebody ever hands you free wood from behind a warehouse and you find that stamp, walk away, and walk away especially fast from MB. Fourth, use your nose. Warm a chunk in your hand and smell the split face. Wood smells like wood. If it smells like chemicals, or plastic, or paint, you're done. Put it down. And here's the substitution that makes the whole aisle look silly. The wood behind the Texas brisket everybody's chasing is post oak. It is not a boutique product. It gets bought as split cooking wood by the box or by the rick out of a local wood yard. And per pound, it lands at a fraction of what that small bag at the big box store costs you. Those little bags are priced somewhere between $1 and change and $3.50 a pound, depending on the size you grab. Do that math against buying a box of split cooking wood from a guy 20 minutes away who can tell you which tree it came off. The reason the store cannot sell you the good version is simple. There's no bag to put it in, no barcode, and nothing to trademark. Now step back with me for a second, because I don't want you walking away from this thinking you should have known better. You were never told. There was nothing on that package to read. You did the thing a reasonable person does, which is trust that the word on the front of a food product means something, and in this one category it doesn't have to. That's not a failure of your judgment. That's a gap in the rules, and you are not the one who wrote them. And look at who owns the shelf. Cowboy, B&B, and Western Premium all sit under Duraflame. 3 bags that look like 3 competitors are one company. Kingsford has been owned by Clorox since 1973. Weber was taken private in a deal that valued it at $3.7 billion, closing in early 2023. The truth about what's in that wood has no marketing budget. The picture of the fire on the front has an enormous one. That's the entire game. There's one more thing you should know before you decide who to trust in this aisle. In October of 2019, a lawsuit was filed in federal court in Utah against Traeger pellet grills. The case was Yates against Traeger. The allegation was that bags sold as hickory, mesquite, apple, cherry, and pecan were not primarily those woods at all, but cheaper wood with flavoring added. The parties reached a settlement of $1.5 million. A judge granted preliminary approval on the 2nd of December, 2024, and final approval on the 2nd of April, 2025. The remedy for a class member is a $3 coupon. They admitted no wrongdoing. They never do. But they wrote the check. Now, that's pellets, not chunks. I'm not going to stretch it into something it isn't. What it tells you is narrow, and it's useful. In this industry, what's printed on the front of a wood package and what's inside it have already been far enough apart to end in a courtroom. You can decide for yourself how comfortable that makes you. So here's what to buy instead. Find a firewood dealer, a tree service, or a small sawmill within driving distance. Ask for cooking wood, not firewood, and ask 3 questions. What tree is it? When was it split? Is any of it painted, treated, or mill scrap? A real dealer answers all 3 without hesitating, because he cut it. Buy a small box first, not a cord, and meter it before you commit to anything bigger. Here's the honest caveat, and I'd rather say it than have you find out. Local wood is not automatically better. Green wood split last week will read well over 30% and smoke sour on you. Some of what gets sold as mixed hardwood is whatever came down in the last storm, and you don't want unknown urban wood. And there is a hard line that has nothing to do with flavor. Never burn pressure-treated lumber. The Environmental Protection Agency says plainly not to burn it in a residential setting. All right, because the older treatment chemistry includes arsenic and chromium, and those end up in the smoke and the ash. Same answer for painted wood, stained wood, plywood, particle board, and any engineered wood held together with glue. And skip the resinous softwoods, the pine and the cedar and the spruce. They'll give you a harsh, sooty smoke. I'll say this too, because I don't want to scare you past what the evidence supports. A name brand bag of hardwood chunks is very unlikely to hurt you. The problem is, you're paying premium money for a species you can't verify, and a moisture level you can't check. The real danger here is what people burn when they go find free wood themselves. All right, here's what you do this Saturday. 1 drive, 2 stops. Stop 1 is the hardware store, and you're buying exactly one thing. A pin-type moisture meter. Walk past the wood. Stop 2 is a local wood yard or a tree service. Ask for cooking wood. Ask what tree. Ask when it was split. Buy the smallest quantity they'll sell you. At home, split 1 piece, meter the fresh face, and write the number on the box with a marker. Look at the faces for saw marks and nail holes. Smell it, and the thing you don't buy matters more than either thing you do. Do not buy another small bag off the end cap on the way out, because it's convenient. That bag is the entire problem, and buying 1 more of them out of habit undoes the whole trip. You don't have to do all of it at once. Buy the meter. That alone moves you from guessing to knowing, and it takes about 4 seconds a chunk from then on. And here's what you actually get. Not a better bag. A supplier. Somebody 20 minutes from your house who knows which tree it came off and costs less than the store does. Once you have that, the aisle stops having any hold on you, and it stays that way for as long as you keep cooking. One more thing before I let you go. The bag is the cheap mistake here. The expensive one is the machine. And I bought 7 of those in 8 years and watched 1 rust through in 2 seasons. That's what the Black Book is. $19.99. Links in the description. If you want it, it's there. If this saved you from 1 bad bag, go ahead and subscribe. It genuinely helps. And tell me in the comments, what does your bag actually say? 4 words is fine. I want to know if anybody out there found one that names the tree and the state and the moisture. Because I couldn't. Keep the lid down and your wallet shut. I'll see you in the next one.